So, welcome everyone. We're very happy that you're joining us here today to mark Stop Food Waste Day. My name is Clea Wells, for those of you who haven't met me before, and I'm the Retail Program Manager here at FoodMesh. So a bit of housekeeping before we get started, just so you're aware this event is being recorded and we'll be sharing a link to it on our website. So if you would like to keep your camera turned off, please feel free. And just a heads up that we will have a couple of polls for you to participate in today, which you'll need your phone for. So please do keep it handy for the session. All right, and please keep yourself on mute until you'd like to talk, just so we can minimize any background noise. Also, I wanted to mention I have my colleague Megan on the line, and she'll be monitoring the chat box for us today. So to get started, we would love to know who we have here today. So if you could please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat box with your name and organization, that would be great. Who we got here? Mark. Hey, Mark, thank you very, very much for joining. Tom from Georgia, Maine. Welcome. Carla from Food Stash. Big fan of Theresa's food. Yes, so are we. Fantastic. And Theresa, of course, from Cedar Feast House. Thank you, Theresa. Awesome. Okay. Yes, absolutely, the star of the show. Aiko, hello. Perfect, thanks, Mark. Okay, so I'm going to get started here, and but feel free to continue posting in the chat box if you like. Okay. All right, so what's the plan for today? We have Chef Theresa Contois from Cedar Feast House Catering leading us through a cooking class using rescued food. Before we dive into that though, given that it's Stop Food Waste Day, we will spend a few minutes to talk about the problem of food waste. After the cooking class, you'll have the chance to put your questions to the chef. And finally, we'll talk about some other ways rescued food is being used. And just for info, this event is in support of the Metro Vancouver Regional Food Recovery Network as part of our work to help build the network of organizations participating in food recovery in the region. And we have some fantastic folks on the line from Metro Vancouver who are extremely supportive of our work to help reduce food waste. So thank you for joining us today. All right, so we'll be including some food waste reduction tips throughout today's event. And if you have any of your own, we'd love to hear them. So please feel free to share them in the chat box or publish them to your social media channels using the hashtag MetroVanLovesFood. So that hashtag is on the screen there, MetroVanLovesFood. All right, let me share a few of our favorite stats about food waste. So a report called The Avoidable Crisis of Food Waste, a technical report by Second Harvest, found that no more than half of what is grown and made in this country is going to waste. So 32% of that food could be rescued, but most often isn't. And this wasting of edible food is happening when 1 in 8 families are food insecure. But that's not all. For anyone who is not aware, food waste is hurting our planet too. When thrown away food ends up in landfill, it creates methane, a greenhouse gas that is at least 28 times more potent than CO2. And 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions each year are due to food loss and waste. So to give you a sense of the scale of the problem, if food waste were a country, it would have the 3rd biggest carbon footprint after China and the USA. All right, and in case you're wondering, this is where in the supply chain that food waste is happening. The majority is wasted before you or I even see the food. But 21% is happening by consumers. So this is a problem that we have the power to fix, both at work and in our homes. Okay. So for the benefit of those who don't know us, I'd like to take a minute to provide an introduction to Food Mesh and where we fit into this. So we're dedicated to helping food businesses reduce their food waste. We're focused primarily in that retail segment of the chart that you saw on the last slide. Each day, food businesses across the country are having to dispose of food. This food is often still perfectly fine to eat, they just can't sell it. So we help those businesses find alternate uses for their unsalable food by connecting them with a network of organizations to rescue it and put it to good use. And on the screen, you can see the impact of our partner organizations and the impact they've had since Food Mesh started almost 6 years ago. So you can see 23 million meals provided, 16 million kilograms of food rescued, and 41 million kilograms of CO2 emissions saved. All right. So recovered food, also known as rescued or surplus food, often gets a bad rep. Some people think that recovered food is garbage and that it's no good. But as you can see from these pictures, that's just not true. We have found that organizations have to dispose of food because there are aesthetic imperfections, it's close to its best before date, or it has errors on its packaging. And the food is often still perfectly fine to eat, it just can't be sold. For many businesses, it is easier and cheaper for them to throw their unsold food away than to find alternate uses for it. And can you imagine the food pictured here ending up in waste streams? The good news is there are a number of great organizations we work with which divert all their unsold food that is still edible away from waste streams to our network of charitable organizations. And their recovered food currently puts the equivalent of 1 million meals on the table for people in need every single month. Okay, I think it's also worth debunking some myths around dates because this is often the cause of much food waste, both at an organization level and at home. People assume that the printed date is the deadline by which the food should be consumed, but that's just not true. The Love Food Hate Waste Canada website describes the distinction as follows. Expiration dates refer to nutritional specifications. You must not eat the food past the expiry date. You'll only find expiry dates on certain foods. Best before refers to quality. Your food will be at its peak freshness, taste, and nutritional value before the best before date if packaging is intact and if it's stored correctly. In other words, it's a freshness date, and there are many foods which will certainly still be edible past this date. They just need some inspection. Of course, when it comes to meat and other animal products, there are food safety guidelines to help assess the edibility. Now, I'd like to ask you all a question. For all the food businesses with us today, we'd love to know, what are you currently doing with your unsold food? Are you composting it, donating it to charities, donating it to farmers, selling it at a reduced price? Maybe it goes in the garbage, or it's used for industrial purposes, or maybe it's something else. So let's take a poll. Okay. So as you can see on the screen, there is a QR code. So you can go ahead and take your phone and use your phone's camera to scan the QR code to participate in the poll. Or you can join at slido.com and enter the code there on the screen. And the question is, what are you currently doing with your unused food? All right. So it's going to form a little bit of a word cloud here, and I'll just give you a few moments to enter responses. So far we've got donating it, donate to charities. At least a couple of people have said donating it. Yeah. All right. So it's all getting donated. That's great. Share with farmers. Awesome. Community fridge. Yep. That's great. Feeding the downtown east side. Perfect. Well, that's all looking very positive. All right. Okay, well, maybe just to keep on schedule here, I will move on, but we have a couple of other polls today as well. Oh, we got composting as well. Okay. Okay, but donating it is really coming out on top there. Okay, all right. Okay, now it's time for us to meet our chef for today's cooking class using rescued food. Theresa Contois is a Vancouver-based chef. She specializes in cooking traditional Indigenous food with a modern twist. But rather than us tell you about Theresa, we would like to hand it over to Theresa to introduce herself and her journey to where she is today. So we're going to watch a short video here. Okay.
Well, my name is Theresa Contois. I was raised in Winnipeg. I come from a family of 20, so needless to say, it was a large family. I think my mother knew what she was doing when I was a little girl, because as soon as I was able to touch the stove knobs, I was in the kitchen with her, you know, raising children, that sort of stuff. And we came here in 2001. I was a broken woman. I had just left an abusive relationship, so needless to say, I turned to drugs. And I was on Hastings within the month, living off the street. And I eventually, during that time, met the love of my life. His name was Tyler Ballantyne, and we just kind of started, you know, we were living outside, we were, you know, in and out of the bins, that sort of stuff. And we ended up, I think he was my angel. He came and we started working ourselves to getting ourselves better, because we knew we wanted to quit. My mother got sick with hydrocephalus, and I was, she asked me, she would come follow me on Skid Row with her wheelchair, trying to find Theresa. I'm going to find Theresa. And she'd show up at my apartment, and it amazed me how she managed to be lifted 3 flights of stairs because there's no elevator, and she'd come and visit with me. And she asked me, can you look after me till the day I die? And I said, of course. So Tyler and I decided to quit doing our drugs, and we cleaned up in 2005. And we started, Mom went through her brain surgery without any complications. I started using the food, and I'm a strong believer that food is medicine. So I used the food to get her better. I researched a lot of stuff. I got her off her blood pressure pills. I started controlling her diabetes. She started to recover from her brain surgery. And after 3 years, I was bored. I said to my brother, I want to do something. And he said, well, take the culinary arts program. You're such a good cook. So I chose to go to the Vancouver Community College, and that year I took every scholarship and every award, and I was asked on, before I even graduated in 2009, to become an instructor. And I've been teaching there for the last 12 years. In 2011, I decided that there's no place for any Indigenous cooks to go to, so I decided to open my own kitchen at the Native Ed College, where I started small company, 1 to 2 employees, and we just started expanding. We opened up a restaurant at one point. We called it Yellow Quill Cafe. We did that for a year, but then unfortunately, the love of my life passed away in 2014. It'll be 8 years in July. And I decided to close. We went to Squatches Lodge. We did catering. We went back to catering and Powell Place. Now I have another kitchen, 440 East Hastings. I'm also I also feed the seniors at 1545 East Broadway, where we do a lot of meal prep 7 days a week for them. What else am I doing? I took my Red Seal. I got that in 2017. I ended up getting my hospitality management degree. I taught in the culinary arts program for 7 years, and then I moved into the hospitality management department, where I teach a lot of international students. And with that being said, with all the things that have been going on with residential school, I'm a strong believer that food is medicine, and healing needs to take place for these. My mother's a residential school survivor, so is my father, so is the little boy's mother that I look after, and I'm going to. I'm in the process of starting an Aboriginal, not really necessarily Aboriginal, youths that are aging out from VACFAS, which is Vancouver Aboriginal Child Family Services. They have nowhere to go. Everything's been done for them. You know, they don't know how to wash dishes. They don't know how to do laundry, that sort of stuff. They're not giving any type of life skills, and they're put out onto the street, and they end up starting to do drugs. One of my nephews is doing drugs now, and he just aged out. There's nowhere there to go. So I thought, hey, why not make a kitchen and bring these, give them give them a trade, but also a healing circle. Also, sweats. I have a friend that has 10 acres of land on the Sunshine Coast, and she's planting indigenous herbs and rhubarb. Take them there to do sweats. I have a food trailer. Take it there so they can deal with customers. A lot of the food that I get, I tend to make. I want to take the food trailer one day a week and feed downtown East Side and just give them Bannock tacos or chili in Bannock, whatever we're making. Yeah, so there's a lot of different things that I'm in the process of doing. I want to give back to society because I know what it's like to live out there. I've had to eat out of the bins because there was no food. But now it makes me feel good that I can make food and give it to the people that they don't have to, do the exact same things I've done.
Okay. Thank you so much, Theresa, for sharing your story. It's a great privilege to learn more about you and your journey to where you are now. And as one of Food Mesh's charity partners, Theresa's team collects the food that local retailers can no longer sell and shares it out with people in our communities who need it. In a moment, she will show us an example of how she transforms donated products she receives into an exquisite beef dish. There will be time for Q&A with Theresa straight after the cooking class. So if you have a question for her, note it down and you'll have your chance to ask. All right, here we go.
Hey, welcome. I'm Clea from Food Mesh.
And I'm Theresa from Cedar Feast House Catering. My catering company is Indigenous, and what we tend to do is we're creating different dishes. So we want to create a fusion. The dish that I'm making today is beef bourguignon, which is my culinary background, which is French. But we want to do, we do different things. We do a bison bourguignon with that. It's kind of fun to do different dishes because we're using different countries and recipes, and we're making it into our own, like venison samosas, for instance. So it's quite interesting.
Different influences.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes. And so what's in the dish that we're going to be making today?
The dish is a beef. We're going to do salt and pepper that. We're going to sear it off. We're going to add tomato paste, red wine to deglaze it, some flour to thicken it up, some beef stock to that, and that goes into the oven for an hour. And then in the meantime, we're going to be doing sauteing bacon, onions, and mushrooms, which get put into the dish at the very end once it becomes a nice sauce.
That sounds delicious.
Yes.
And what about if someone wanted to make it vegetarian? Is there something that they could substitute the meat for?
Yeah, you could. I know there's already mushrooms at the end, but you could do a portobello mushroom, which gives you different texture. It's a bigger mushroom. You can sear that, or also using tofu would be a good one to use in place of the meat.
All right, sounds delicious.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's get going.
Okay, let's get started. This is some Food Mesh donations I received yesterday, which is a beautiful sirloin steak, and we're going to turn this into a beautiful dish called beef bourguignon. Okay. So we're going to get started by cutting your meat. You're going to do about 1-inch cubes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so you got this beef through the Food Mesh program.
Yes.
From one of the, was it Save on Foods?
Yes, this was Save on Foods that I picked this up. But there are some other stores I do pick up as well.
Yeah.
From Bilo as well as IGA.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And so if you were picking up meat, let's say beef, and you weren't going to be using it straight away, would you be freezing that? How would you make sure that that was saved and still kept fresh?
Well, I do have another kitchen where I do have 5 freezers there.
Okay.
So I do that. But I also, if I don't have, if I can't use the meat personally myself,
Yeah.
I end up taking it to the Native Ed College where there's students there that can really use the food.
Okay.
And I give it to people who are in need. I mean, I have different organizations I give to.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the reach of the donations, would you say?
It can vary. Some of the students take their food and they take it to their hometown in like Lillooet and stuff
Oh, wow.
over the
Okay.
weekends
Yeah,
to
that's
feed their
quite
family.
far out. Yeah.
I also have like Vancouver, Surrey. Some
Yeah.
of the students come in from Surrey.
Yeah.
I tend to focus my most on downtown east side because I
Okay.
like to use the food and feed them as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
This is good. I think we have more than enough. We can use that for later. And
Okay,
I
great.
need a bowl.
A bowl.
Can I
All
get
right.
one of my students to grab me a bowl, a glass bowl, please, so I can put this in there?
Okay.
And this is Erica. She's one of my students.
Hi,
Okay.
Erica.
So we're going to put this in here. We're going to salt and pepper it. Okay. We're going to toss it up. Okay. And we just leave this for a little bit.
So what did you just put in there?
Just some
So
salt, some pepper. That's
and
all you need to
just
do.
Salt and pepper.
What it tends to happen
Okay.
is the salt will start bringing out the fat and stuff in it. It starts making sort of cooking it a little bit.
Bringing
but
out the flavor a little
the
bit.
flavor. There you
Yeah.
go. So there's the salt and pepper, and then we're going to need some onions cut.
Okay.
Usually, like 1 onion is more than enough.
All right.
And what I'm going to show you is how I teach my students how to cut an onion. Is you leave the root end on it.
Okay.
Okay, you go down with it.
Okay.
Okay. Take both sides off. This is how you make a nice dice, and that way everything's nice and even.
Yeah, I usually take that layer off as well because it.
Yeah.
It's just not quite.
So when you're
Yeah.
cutting an onion, you cut it 1 cut,
Okay.
and then you do a 2nd cut. Okay. And then you come straight down. So that the root end is still intact, so your onion's not falling apart on you. Okay.
Oh wow.
Then you make a claw. That's the best way to cut.
Okay.
See, now they're all nicely same size.
Look at that.
Then when you run out of area, you just make a couple more slits down, and you go this way. And I'm a big believer that you don't want to waste food, so
Absolutely.
you cut it like this. I mean, I came from a family
And
of
it-
20,
yeah,
so we
yeah.
always made sure that there
There's
was
no
no
waste
waste.
there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's how you cut an onion. We're going to put that in this container here,
Okay.
where we've already got everything ready
All
in
right.
the back here. So I'm wanting to move towards the stove so we can get this pan seared.
Okay.
Okay?
Great. All right. So is that on about medium or?
A medium flame is good. I mean,
Okay.
gas cooks a lot faster, so we
All
have
right.
to
There's the oil.
be. All right, so we've heated up the pan just a little bit. Okay, we're going to add the oil. A good way of testing it is just putting your hand, just make sure it's gotten hot, because we want to make sure it's hot enough so that it sears it right away.
Okay. And then, so how much beef do we put in at once?
Well, it's very important that you don't crowd your beef, so you make a single layer of it.
Okay.
You put too much, then you start boiling your meat. If you boil your meat, it makes it tough and makes it a lot harder to cook.
Okay, so it's not going to be as tender.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so now it's time to take the beef off. And you can see just how beautiful the color of the pan is right now.
Yeah.
So the next step I want to do is it's called deglazing the pan.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab a rubber spatula. These are heat resistant so they can stand the heat. And then we're going to add the red wine. And what you're doing is you're going to take it, you're going to cook off the alcohol, but also you're going to use your spatula to take all those little particles from the bottom of the pan, just so that this is what, like I say, this is what's going to give you the coloring.
So they're actually incorporated, like you're using the little pieces from the bottom of the pan and using it, like bringing it into the sauce.
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
it's making the color of the sauce.
Okay.
And also the flavoring as well. from the meat that we had just seared off.
Smells delicious.
And as Erica was mentioning earlier, how searing the beef, you're searing all the juices as well. So that's an important component.
And how long does this step take? How long
It doesn't take very long. It's almost done already.
Okay.
So we're just about done. We're going to add, because all the particles are up, the wine has been cooked off.
Okay.
So we're going to add some garlic to this.
All right.
Okay. All right.
And so you've just minced up that garlic.
Yes, I've minced up the garlic. That'll be for another show, how to mince garlic, if you like.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so there's the garlic. We're going to add a bay leaf. We're also going to add some tomato paste, which is 2.5 teaspoons that I have here.
2.5 teaspoons?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Cook that off. Just let it cook for a little bit. And I'll just move these out of the way. And over here, I have some beef stock that I made earlier. It's 2 liters.
Okay.
So we're going to let this heat up. You see how nice and brown it's becoming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's turning into a beautiful color.
Yeah. So this is an important step. The next step is the flour, okay? And what you're going to do with the flour is you're going to add it and you're going to stir it up, and you're going to make, it's called a roux, okay? So you want to keep stirring it. You don't want it to become too lumpy. Okay. Okay, and you're incorporating it with the sauce. And then what you're going to do after that's been incorporated, you take the beef stock here and you slowly, don't add it all at once because you'll end up having it all clumpy. You're making the sauce this way. So it's important that you just, I always call it the love. On the sides of your pan, just kind of scrape it all back into your sauce.
Okay.
And then what I'm going to do now is I've taken the seared beef that we've seared previously, and we're just going to add it to the sauce. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So you've still got the bay leaf in there.
Yeah, the bay leaf comes out at the very end,
Okay.
once it comes out. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this and we're going to cover it with some tin foil.
Okay.
Okay. You can shut off the element.
Okay.
Some gloves on. Okay, and then we're going to be putting this in a 350-degree oven.
Okay.
Okay. For 1 hour. Okay.
So now that we've got the dish in the oven, I guess we've got a chance to chat a little bit about how you use up rescued food. And so what sort of volume of donations are you getting every week?
Well, I'm getting at least 100 pounds a day, so it could be up to 500 pounds a week that I get, and which is amazing to me
Yeah.
that how much food could actually,
That's great.
feed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what sorts of products, what departments do you get in the donations?
Oh, I get a wide variety. We get the meat department, the produce department, the dairy department, sometimes groceries, you know. So, and that's really good for feeding the families. It gives them a lot of opportunities to pick and choose what they need.
Absolutely.
And I'm finding that with the donations that we do receive, it's very rare that I have to throw anything out because it's
Okay, the quality's there.
It's very good. Like
Okay.
I was hesitant when I first started taking donations. It must be about 2.5 years ago already.
Right.
But I would say I probably, maybe over that whole period, maybe a box of food. That's it.
Wow.
Everything else has been
That's fantastic.
reused. So
Yeah.
yes.
That's good. Yeah. And I mean, you know, you've got lots of tips and tricks and experience with working with lots of different sorts of products. So you're able to really envisage, you know, meals that you can make,
Yes.
food prep that you can do with all these different ingredients. So I'm sure you're really making the best use of all of the food that you receive.
We've never received any complaints on the food that we give out.
Yeah.
So yes.
Fantastic.
And like I say, with the rising costs and inflation happening, you know, like this, like I say, even the students are more are appreciative. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's starting to grow because everything is so expensive.
Okay, well, thank you very much for telling us a little bit more about the donations and the food that you're working with and what you do with it and how you cook with it. I guess it's time to take the meal out of the oven.
Sure. Okay, let's do
All right.
that then. All right, so we're going to take some bacon that we diced up, okay, and we want to fry it till it's crisp. Okay.
So did you add any oil into the pan first, or?
No, because the bacon's got a lot of oil. You could add if you like.
Yeah.
But okay. So we're going to add the onions. It's just starting to crisp up a little bit.
Okay.
And we're going to add the onions just so it becomes translucent.
Okay.
Going to make sure you're not too high because you don't want it to burn on you. So now we're going to add the mushrooms, okay? Make sure the heat's turned down a little bit. Don't want to cook it too fast because I don't want to burn the onions, right?
Yeah. Are you about on medium heat now?
I've got it on medium to low.
Okay.
All right, so this is going to be put into the beef that's been in the oven for the last hour.
Okay.
Okay, and it should be pork tender by now. Okay. All right, and this will add nice flavor to the dish. Okay. All right. Okay, I've turned off the heat. Okay. We're going to pull out the dish that we put in to the oven. Look at that.
Wow, that smells amazing.
Yes. So just give this a stir. I'm going to take the bay leaf out. Okay. See how nice it made a nice sauce? Like I said, that's why it's important that you set, when you're searing it, is what gives the color to your dish. So we're going to add this. This is a very heavy frying pan, so I'm going to add this to there. Normally I would do it the other way around,
Okay.
but look at that. Nice. And I want to scrape it all, so get all the sauce in there.
That looks full of flavor. Look at that.
Yes. All right. Well, let's get this trayed up and plate it up, and then we can have a taste.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
excited. All right, so here we have it. So walk us through what we've got here. It looks like there's some sides.
Yes, we have a mashed potato, and we have the beetroot, carrot, what we steamed, and with place some honey on that, as well as an asparagus.
Okay. It looks divine.
Excellent.
Okay, so this is what we can do with rescued food.
Have a taste.
Okay, all right. So, I'll try and get all of the elements here.
Okay.
I'll try this bit first, I guess.
With the beetroot,
Okay.
it's very, very healthy for you.
Mm.
It's if you're having it cleanses your body, it cleans your blood as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to take away from your tasting.
No,
I know your
that's
mouth is
okay.
watering.
No, go
teasing
ahead.
you.
That's really tender. And
Yes.
Very, very tasty.
Yes.
It's very rich.
It is
in a good
very
way.
rich. Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's all different kinds of food. Even when I get risotto, I do a beetroot risotto, which is like amazing. So,
I think you should have some too.
oh, definitely, I'll give it a try.
That's divine.
Very good. I haven't had this in a long time. It's really good. So this is what you can make out of repurposing the food.
Yeah. There we go. There we have it.
Yes, and in a restaurant, you'd easily pay $40 to $50 for a plate like this. But what we're going to do, treat for the downtown east side, we're going to be packaging it up and giving them out today.
All right. Well, thank you so, so much for leading us through this cooking class today and showing us how to make this dish. It's absolutely delicious. And I'm really glad that it is going to people in need today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
Okay. All right, so a huge thank you to Theresa for that engaging cooking class. It's so good to see how food that was destined for waste streams has been rescued and turned into a delicious meal. At this point, just a reminder to share your food waste reduction tips. So you can share yours in the chat box or publish them to your social media channels using the hashtag #MetroVanLovesFood. So that's #MetroVanLovesFood. So now it's the time to put your questions to the chef. Maybe you're wondering what to do with certain food items in your fridge, or you're wondering how food recovery works. So this is your chance. If you have a question for Theresa, use the Zoom control bar on your screen to raise your hand, and I'll call out your name for your question. All right, so I'm going to be looking for hands. So use the Zoom control bar and raise your hand. Okay, Laura, go ahead.
Hi, Theresa. Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you made a beef stock, and so I was wondering if you had any tips on how to use food waste to make meat or vegetable stock.
Okay, great. That's a good question. So when I'm teaching at VCC, I also tell the students when you're peeling potatoes or carrots or chopping up celery and you've got the root ends of the stuff, that can all still be reused to make a beautiful, either be a veg stock or a beef stock. I mean, saving, if you're cutting up the meat or the bones, say of beef or chicken or whatever you're using to make your stock, you can roast that off. You can add all the extra peelings and stuff, so it can all be reused again. You know, the onion bits, that sort of, even the skin from the onion can be used.
Wow, and how would you keep the peels? And because I definitely don't have enough vegetable peels at once to make my stock, so would I just freeze them until I'm ready?
Yeah, you could freeze them and then use them when you're ready. Yes, definitely. Definitely can be done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just while we're waiting for others, I actually do have a question for you, Theresa. How you mentioned that you could even use the skins of the onion. How would you do that?
You just put it into the stock. You would,
Yeah, okay.
let's just talk about veg stock, for instance. You take all the peelings that you saw in the video, you could take those peelings and you could put them into the stock. And then once, for veg stock, it's usually about 45 minutes that you want to simmer it. You never want to boil stock, because if you boil stock, it makes it cloudy. And so you're going to simmer it for 45 minutes. If it's chicken, it's a little bit longer. I believe it's 2 to 4 hours. And if you're doing beef, you're looking 8 to 12 hours of simmering. But what we do is we take all those peelings and then we end up throwing it into our stock, because it's all going to be strained off afterwards. So you're going to be double straining it through a china cap and then a fine mesh chinois. And that gets rid of all the little particles that are stuck into the stock, and you get a nice clear stock.
Okay, thank you. That sounds delicious. Okay, looks like we've got a question from Teddy. Go ahead.
Hi, Theresa. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to your process of how you come up with different meal ideas when you never really know what you're going to be getting with the donations. It's probably constantly changing. So you probably have to be a bit creative in terms of what you come up with. I'm interested to hear how you do that.
Well, it's really funny. This morning, I dream food. This morning, I was dreaming that I had to make macaroni salad. I ran into my kitchen before coming back here to do this meeting, And it was like, I gotta make macaroni salad. And my staff looked at me, no, it's not Sunday, but I dream food. Like it just kind of comes up as I need it. It's exciting. It's exciting for me because if I have bison, like I have bison today, so we're gonna do some bison tacos for next week. So we're gonna start cooking off the meat for that. So it just comes. It just like an artist painting, kind of the same thing. It just comes to you as to what you want to make, what you're going to make, what you feel like making.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we've got a couple of questions here. I think, Megan, is that you? You've got a question?
It is, yeah. Hey, Theresa. I was just wondering, what you mentioned, if you wanted to make this vegetarian, you can use either portobello mushrooms or tofu for the beef.
Mm-hmm.
Would you just leave out the bacon then? Because obviously, is there an alternate that you could use instead of the bacon, or would you just leave that part out?
Well, if you're doing vegetarian, there are vegetarian deli meats that they sell as well, ground round. You could use in place of the tofu and stuff as well. So there are different versions nowadays. A lot of plant-based different things that are coming up. So there are different opportunities to use in place of bacon. That was a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Looks like Aiko also has a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned some of your indigenous background, and I was wondering, I don't know much about indigenous food and food culture. I was wondering what would you say is a kind of like a signature dish, indigenous signature dish?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about my ancestors way back when, the signature dish would be, like, for instance, it's whatever they went hunting and gathering. So they could be gathering wild strawberries, wild berries. There was also, prior to the settlers, there was wild garlic, leek, onions. If they were hunting and they got bison, they would make a bison stew. And they didn't have stovetops as we have now, but they would cook over an open fire. They would make bannock, even though bannock is a Scottish recipe. Prior to the settlers, they had their own way of making bannock with cattail and camas. They would make their own kind of bread that way as well. So it just depends on what era you're talking about. But indigenous food nowadays is like Chinese food was 300 years ago, and now Chinese food is takeout. Everyone's interested. It's the nouveau type of food. Bison is more healthier for you. It's better than having beef. And if you're talking chicken, for instance, or actually a good one too is halibut. Halibut, it's a really good one. If you're recovering from drug or alcohol, it cleanses your whole body. So the halibut fish, whatever it gathers on the bottom of the ocean, is really good for people who are recovering.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Theresa. I was wondering actually if you wouldn't mind telling people just briefly about the Three Sisters salad.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, there's a story behind, with Indigenous people, there's always a story behind their food. And prior to the settlers coming, the Indigenous people were farmers, and they would strategically plant these three plants. The butternut squash had big leaves, and it would keep the minerals and the water in the soil. As the corn grew, the beanstalk would wrap itself around the corn as a trellis. So when it came to harvesting these three plants, they ended up harvesting them, and they ended up calling them the Three Sisters salad. So that's the story behind that one.
Thanks, Theresa.
You're welcome.
I heard you mention that story the other day, and I thought that would be great for everyone to hear. I really like that story.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess just checking for any other questions before we move on. All right. Well, maybe we'll move on for now, but feel free to add any additional questions into the chat box as we go. Okay. And thank you very much, Theresa, for answering all of this for us.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. So yeah, it's incredible to see the impact that your work is having, Theresa, and the impact of your work and your team's work at Cedar Feast House. So now donating unsold food to charity is one way of keeping it out of waste streams, but there are lots of other organizations finding creative ways of using it as well. So we'd like to share with you a couple that we know about. So let's check them out.
Okay, so we finished cooking and all of that cooking has got us quite hungry. So I'm sitting here with my colleague Megan, also from Food Mesh, and we're just going to take a look at a couple of other ways to use rescued food. All right, so over here.
So what do we got here then?
So these are cookies from Sustainable. So it's a local company that uses upcycled barley flour.
Right, and how do they get that barley flour?
So actually they get it from the brewing process. So they go to breweries and they get the spent grain and it's otherwise it would have been discarded. They save that and they use it in all of their products.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't taste of beer or anything, does it?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
No, I've had quite a few of their products before and they're delicious, if I may say so myself.
All right.
And also they are, here, take one.
All right, thank you.
They are also higher in protein and fiber than a lot of other products.
Okay. So what flavor are these?
So these are choc chip and coconut, and they have other flavors as well. And they also do baking mixes as well.
Okay.
So they've got like a banana bread mix, a plain upcycled barley flour bread mix, and they've also got, I think, a waffle mix. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And these are delicious and they don't taste at all like beer.
Yeah.
And they're healthy.
Yeah, they're healthier choice, and yeah, I find them quite delicious. And what about you? What do you got there?
Well, so what I brought is these are Love the Grub chutneys and jams. And so what they do, they're also a local business, and they take produce that is past its best. It could be imperfect, bruised, whatever, directly from farms or from markets, and they cook it up and they turn it into these delicious chutneys and jams and things that they then are able to sell. And they are delicious. I have a couple in my fridge, but this one here, we've got Dijon apple chutney, and here a chai apple spread. So they
sound delicious.
Yeah, they're very, very good. So I'm actually going to put one on a cracker. What's missing here, of course, is cheese. I think cheese would go really well with these, but they're also very, very nice on their own. So
yeah.
I'm going to have the chai apple spread.
It sounds it. I might try the Dijon apple chutney.
I just think it's amazing that these products that might have gone into landfill if they weren't rescued, are able to be repurposed, reused, and then turned into a whole new product.
Yeah, and a perfectly good product as well.
Delicious. Oh, that's lovely. Very spicy.
Trying this.
I've got a tiny thin spread and you've got an enormous.
You know me.
Good, huh? Really nice. So these are two organizations that are upcycling food. Do you know of any others that are operating locally?
Goodly.
What do they do?
So they make soups from upcycled or imperfect vegetables. It's a not-for-profit, and they're actually really delicious.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So that's one example.
Well, Theresa, she was mentioning that soups is a great way to use food that is, vegetables that might be a bit bruised. They might not be good for the fresh dish, but to throw them into soups or stocks and things.
Yep.
Such a great way to use it.
Yep, absolutely. Stews, chutneys,
There's so many options.
Yeah, lots of options.
Very exciting to see all this, and I know that there's lots and lots out there that that people are doing as well that we don't even know about. So we'd love to know if you know of any organisations that are upcycling food or reusing, rescuing products that would have otherwise gone to waste. We'd love to know who they are, so maybe you could share that with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Megan.
All right, enjoy.
Cheers.
Okay, just unmute myself here. Here we go. Okay, so we've shared some of our examples from amazing retailers like IGA and a charity partner like Cedar Feast House, as well as Love the Grub and Sustainable. So we'd like to know, what organizations do you know, either in Metro Vancouver or elsewhere, doing amazing things? So let's take a poll. So once again, you've got the QR code there on the screen. So feel free to grab your phone, scan the QR code to answer the poll, or you can join at slido.com and enter that code there. And the question is, what organizations do you know that are rescuing food? So we'll see some responses pop up here, hopefully. So I'll just give it a few moments for people to scan that in. Pecco Produce. Oh, yeah, I have taken a look at their website. Looks excellent. Yeah, they produce it's boxes of imperfect produce that they rescue and they deliver to people's homes. And I think my colleague Megan has tried them out before. Trendy, a couple of people know Trendy. Loop Mission, yeah. Fantastic. Second Harvest. Trendy, I'm going to have to look up. I've definitely heard of them before. Food Stash. Absolutely. Happy Planet. City Reach. Too Good to Go, yeah. That's sort of newer on the scene over here in Vancouver. Okay. Blade Runners, I don't think I've heard of them. Vancouver Food Runners, Flash Food. Okay, so lots. Actually, they're going off the screen, but I can scroll here. Here we go. There we go. Great. Okay. Well, just for the sake of time, I will move on, but we can see that there are lots of different organizations doing a fantastic job at rescuing food and repurposing it. Thanks, guys. Green Spark. Oh, film and TV production sets. I'm going to look that up. Thank you. Okay, so I'll look at those again later. All right. So if you're a food business and would like to put your unsold food to good use, we invite you to join the Food Mesh Network. We welcome all kinds of food businesses along the supply chain. And if our programs can't meet your unique needs, then we can connect you to one that can. Charities and farmers are welcome to join so they can receive and redistribute that food. So you can go to foodmesh.ca and select Join the Network in the top right corner. And that's where the arrow is pointing there on the screen. Okay. All right. Given how much food waste is happening in our homes, we wanted to share this great resource with you as well. Love Food, Hate Waste Canada has loads of tips for preventing food waste at home. We referenced a bunch of them today, including how to plan your meals and creative uses for leftovers. So that's lovefoodhatewaste.ca. Okay, and as a thank you for taking the time to join us today, we have prepared a virtual goodie bag for you, which is packed with tips, resources, the recipe from today's class, and even a discount code for Sustainable. So you can access it by scanning the QR code on the screen. And a link to this will also be winging its way to your inbox, along with a recording of this event later today. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to scan the code if you would like. Otherwise, look out for the link later today. That picture is actually making me quite hungry right now. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for joining us today. With that, we'll say goodbye and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very, very much for joining us. Okay.